Welcome to another North-South podcast. Let's get into it.
Today, Darren and I thought it would be appropriate to speak about the business of sport. It's just something that we've been discussing recently, and we thought it was very interesting how certain sports markets handle the payment of players and the transfer of players and stuff. So yeah, Darren, what got you thinking about this whole subject?
Well, I think it was just a conversation we had like last week about some of the big contracts, especially in America, and that with some like the baseball players and NBA players and the figures attached to the contracts that they have, and also just looking at things like the RPL, where some of the cricketers and that getting a few $1 million basically for a month or so of work. So yeah, and then I was pretty interested in what you were speaking about in regards to the NBA contracts and how they work. Just
Yeah, fundamentally, there's the first major difference is, like, I wouldn't say I don't like it about the IPL, but in the IPL, we were really amped. I think it was the peak of our interest in cricket when the IPL came in. I remember, like, viscerally remember the first one. Remember the first match actually with Brendan McCullum going nuts for the Kolkata Knight Riders. It's crazy what kind of like in-depth memory, because that was a crazy thing back then. People getting in trouble for joining rebel leagues, getting kicked out their countries, cricket unions and things like that. But then, like, a few seasons later, all of a sudden, everyone's different. So, like, what kind of... Because when you watch a team, yeah, you have allegiance to the team. But when you introduce a league, you sort of have allegiance to players being attached to that team. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's quite funny that you mentioned that. Like, back then, when the IPL first started, it was like the go-to league, and everything else was considered like these rebel leagues and that. And like,
yeah,
in
especially the
Pakistan,
Pakistan league, which is very popular now, getting in huge trouble. People are losing their national abilities to play for their teams.
Yeah, it's so funny how that worked. Like, you had to pledge your allegiance basically to the RPL, and not play for any other T20 leagues around the world. But now, a few years later, like, every single country has got an RPL equivalent. Like, Bangladesh have one. I think obviously there's the Big Bash.
Can we say South Africa has one? Can we say South Africa has one? They tried and failed the first time miserably again. But I honestly, being here, I don't really hear much hype about it, man. Because you hear stuff about the Sharks all the time. You hear stuff about the Dolphins all the time. Just this new one didn't really kick off at all.
And I think the franchise names were fantastic for the South African one. The Paul Rocks, fantastic name there. So yeah, I don't know who came up with that marketing strategy.
That's amazing.
But anyway.
But yeah, and then in America, they're like, you even get... We're not going to speak about the NFL in this one, because that's a whole different sort of
Catalog.
demon in itself. Yeah, they play a union and stuff is way more hectic. Obviously, there's lots of different positions. There's some more exposed to, like, career-ending injuries and injuries on a constant basis, and then other sections of their sport, like punters, who basically have their own unions, so to speak, and because the conditions are completely different to them. So we thought we'll concentrate on NBA versus all the other sports, because we say they're similar. I think soccer is the one that's most hyped because of the outrageous amounts of money they earn. Cricket, to a certain extent, hasn't reached that amount, with excluding India, who pay their players, and the endorsements in India must be absolutely insane. And then rugby, which I think is lagging behind all the other sports in terms of the big budget contracts, because I think that's the sport that's lagging most behind in terms of national identity and spreading your abilities abroad.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I was just looking at some of the contracts with regards to the Indian cricket team, because, like, I assume they're probably one of the best paid teams in international cricket, and their contracts range from Kora, the 7 Kora to 1 Kora, which is equivalent of nearly $1 million. So the top 5 guys, I think it's Kohli, Sharma, Bumrah, and 2 others that get paid $1 million a year, and then it goes down from that. But that excludes any of the other contracts with regards to RPL or in the RPL and any other leagues, and their from sponsors and that. So the bare minimum they're just getting from Cricket India is like $1 million, which is pretty hectic. And then I was looking as well into the the rugby side, and like who are the biggest paid rugby players in that, and majority of them are Southern Hemisphere players. But what I found, I kind of thought, then there might be a bit of discrepancy, because I feel like the guys that some of the big names from the Southern Hemisphere that play here in Europe are probably better paid.
Probably need to entice them to come over, though. So that's why it's big inflated salary.
I think even Etzebeth, or the rumors were around that after the World Cup he's going to go play in France for, I think, Toulouse or Toulon, one of the two.
I think it's more than a rumor. I think he is going to do it.
And he's going to get paid around I think around the 20 million mark or something, some ridiculous.
That example though, I know what you're saying. I've seen it before, but for that example, I don't think it applies. I think he's a beast. No matter where he'd play, he'd probably be worth that. But if we paid him that, we'd probably like defund the whole franchise.
But the top from what I found, that the top ranked or paid rugby player was Israel Folau at 1.14 million pounds a year, which is pretty big for someone that I don't think he's worth that kind of money.
Yeah, even if I look at like pure points value, he's going to get you points. He'll break the line, break the advantage line, but not in terms of like really adding up those points. He doesn't even really have much of a boot to speak of to really,
He's not like one of those key like memorable players. Like, I had to think of actually who he plays for in the Super Rugby, and like when last I actually saw him play. And so
But then again, a business of sport. Maybe he's filling the seats. Who knows?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So let's look at a bit of we'll use the NBA as an example for salary cap. We're going to completely separate endorsement deals, which is a separate thing to the NBA cap. So the NBA says each team gets to spend X amount of money on their salaries, regardless of whether they're in the big markets where they'd sell a whole bunch of merchandise and a whole bunch of season tickets, like big markets like New York Knicks, LA Lakers, Chicago Bulls. So whether those teams are doing good or bad, the stadium's always full, always getting all kinds of endorsement deals from different sponsors. And I think the biggest one is television deals. So that's where the millions, hundreds of millions, and sometimes billions comes into play, is when you can get those deals, versus the smaller market teams that would really be like struggling to keep up with those teams if it was just pure balance sheet versus balance sheet. New Orleans Lakers, Milwaukee Bucks, Cleveland Cavaliers, whether they're doing good or bad, their market is only so big. They can only sell so much merch. So that's where the disparity comes in. And you'd see it in the Premier League as well. Like, how is a team like, I don't want to call out any tiny little team, but is meant to compete with any of the teams in Manchester, any of the teams in London. Their markets are just so much bigger. So like in America, through the years, they've seen, eventually you get into like when a league develops into like 50, 60, 70 years. People stop watching when the same teams keep winning. Maybe 3 or 4 teams, you can get away with it, like La Liga, like Premier League. But when it comes to America, when teams do things well, like sell merch and get that money, sell season tickets, get their money, their stadiums get bigger. Their television deals get bigger. They create like the most valuable franchises in America is like Los Angeles Lakers and Dallas Cowboys. Just look at Dallas Cowboys. They haven't won jack forever, but they're still one of the biggest because they've created a franchise brand for themselves. So then they say they give each team, depending on whether the league's growing or not, they'll give them a certain limit. So the limit right now, I think it's around between $105 and $120 million that they get to fill the entire roster. If you go over that amount, you can go over that amount. So in terms of people say hard cap versus soft cap on a league, it is a hard cap, but you can go over. And the reason why they call it a hard cap is because the luxury tax is so ridiculous on that. Even just going over by under 5 million, which is nothing. That's like half a player's contract. For each dollar you spent over that hard limit, the league taxes you 1.5 times that amount. So like, you don't even want to go there. It will like basically bankrupt the owners, even though the owners are billionaires. So it's very stringent. And if some of the bigger market teams, they really don't care, man. Like, I remember when LeBron was in Cleveland last year, they said, right, this is our chance to win the league, break the bank. And they went into, like, I don't know, the highest level, which is like in the over 20 million over the hard cap. And for every dollar they went over the hard cap, they paid almost 4 times that tax. So
Wow.
if they went like $10 million over the hard cap, they ended up paying the league $40 million in tax. That's ridiculous just for tax. So like it ends up breaking your whole team in that aspect. So they really stopped them from doing that. I think we should look at it because like Darren and I are huge fans of the Premier League. It's like our home, basically. Well, Darren literally, but I mean, even before then, it was our home of football. Like that's where our football news, that's where our football feelings came from, regardless of whether the skill was there or not. I think it's sad, and I know Darren agrees that like when a player really starts to shine, like Bale could have taken Tottenham to places that Tottenham could never even have dreamed of, even in terms of growing their brand. And he was just taken away, and he did all weird things. They grew his hair, he did all funny things in Real Madrid. He never really, showed his true talent because he was versing everyone.
Yeah, if I could just step in there and just say that
Yeah, no problem.
Bale started in Southampton, so he could have taken Southampton to new heights, which I would have been happy about.
But
yeah,
unfortunately, I don't think salary cap could have even helped that one, Darren.
Yeah, they aren't the biggest club in the world, and their budget isn't that great.
But Madrid and Barca are constantly stealing everyone, man. Everyone's gone. Everyone just goes there.
Yeah, I think it's like as what you were saying with some of the big teams and that in America and that have kind of behind them, and they create this culture basically around the team, and because of all the history and that, it just draws in players from wherever, and these people just want to go there because of what those teams mean and what their history is. If you just look at
But Darren, sorry, I have to interject there, but then correlation's not causality in that aspect. The only reason those clubs have that heritage is because they've always had more money.
Yes, I agree. That is definitely a huge part of it, and something that should be looked at. And I think like one of the things they do want to try bring in is like that kind of fair play kind of aspect to it, where to ensure that the players are evenly distributed across teams and that.
So endemic in football, though, it's going to take years to reverse that.
Yeah, that the smaller teams or bigger teams, should I say, their budgets are capped a bit. That they can't just go spend like by Mbappe or Neymar every other season, which is like what 120 million at a time. None of the smaller teams can ever dream of spending that kind of money, like the PSGs and Barca's and that.
And then like what scares me is the vulnerability of rich people to come in and ruin the league. Like just for some extent it happened in the NBA, but it's very rare because they got most of the good players in the Warriors farm drafts, which is a whole different story we'll talk about one day. What about if Bill Gates just decides to pick up a team and just buy everyone? It happened with Chelsea. I won't lie, I've been a fan of Chelsea since 2003, which is like decades now. But that team really, within a year or two, Abramovich went crazy and just pickpocketed every single team. He took Lampard, he took Essien, he took everyone from everywhere. He took Drogba. Yeah, they gelled and there was chemistry. He did it, but that's what can happen when people just take a fancy to a specific team and do it. A lot of people can be furiously typing or whatever in the comments now saying, "What about Leicester? What about Leicester?" In statistics and in analysis, there's outliers. There always has been. You'll get it in sport.
What do you think about like introducing a draft system to like a Premier League where it's not fully reliant on drafts? But you do have like a pool of players that get drafted every season. That players or teams can bid for on that, and where like the lower teams get first pick.
Yeah, I think if you look at the draft system, it's an American thing, and as many of our highly intellectual guests have said before, America comes up with their own brilliant things that's very hard to replicate everywhere else. A thing like a draft, I think, would work, but you probably wouldn't take it from college. You'd probably take it from second division. if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like the only way to play for a first division team would to be to shine in second division. I think it's good, but the reason why America started the draft, they want a place to go to college so that if they do bust their knee in the first season, they can fall back on that degree or that semi-college education. If you're playing second league football and you get drafted into first league, bust your knee in first league, what are you falling back on? Second league? Nope, dude, you can't play anymore. So a little bit weird there too. It wouldn't really work, as with most things in America. You can't really take it, apply it somewhere else.
But you
Something
could,
like that though, maybe.
yeah, you could
For
try.
youngsters, maybe coming out of high school or coming out of college, going to like a youth development, they could introduce something like that to make sure that, because in America, when you get drafted into a team, there's specific laws that bypass cap laws. So like they give you more lenience to offer that player more money. You can put a franchise tag on them so no one can even try and trade for them. Different sort of things to help retention, because like as you mentioned, it builds up the culture of the team. So teams like Boston Celtics, they haven't won for many years, but they're still considered one of the best teams in the league because of all the times they did win. And I think that's important. And when all the times teams do win, it happens to be one or two teams, you get that, like what's happening now. Like you lose the best. Premier League's the best. I don't care what anyone says, dude. It's the most exciting and it's the most full of drama. There's more drama happening between the players off the field than on the field, and that's what makes it nice. Other teams are spicy, but not so much for entertainment, and that's what it's about.
And do you think, like for rugby, like for Super Rugby kind of thing, I think at the moment, like the Varsity Cup and that is like a good feeder system.
Excellent, absolutely excellent. They've managed to emulate a system there that's first world, and you can see how it's flourishing throughout the years. It G's up those universities, get some spirit going.
And you can see some of like the players already that play varsity rugby, and 2 seasons later they
Straight to Springboks.
Yeah, top notch international side kind of thing. And
I think
that's
Chester Coleman, or I can't remember his name, but it was a few years ago now. He just played 2 years UCT straight into Springboks. No even franchise. You can look at the quality coming through there.
But
another thing, do they get paid, by the way, Darren? Varsity college players.
They do, but I think it's really nominal. I think they want to change it, but it's really low. I think it's like peanuts.
But within a flash of a decision, they could like triple it if they wanted to. Versus in America, where college players at the collegiate level don't get anything, even though there's billions made on the contracts for television and sponsorships. The coaches get paid, the cleaners get paid, except the players. Isn't that like to be extreme? And I've heard a lot of analysts say this is like slavery. They're not getting paid.
It is. When I watched the Vice report on it a while ago, and it's ridiculous that these college players are playing at such a high level. They're basically semi-professional, bordering on professional players.
It's exciting to watch, which I consider professional.
Yeah, it definitely is. But with all the effort, like everything around them is so professional. Like they all have. All the big teams have these physios. They have the nutritionists and all that kind of stuff for these college sides, but they can't even pay them something or put money away towards like college education or putting it into investment of some form for them. I think it's really bad.
If that's not horrific enough, Darren, they're not even allowed to get endorsed. What the hell, dude? That's ridiculous, man.
That is like, and it's
getting a free meal, getting a free car wash. Dumb stuff have gotten people banned, Darren. Ridiculous stuff.
It's ridiculous. Like, why are they so stringent on?
I have no idea why they like that. I don't know why they like that. For a country that you live and die by the dollar and your hard work equals dollars in every single sense, why would they accept exploitation? And so many people are speaking up. To the other day, Zion Williamson was, by the way, Obama came to watch Zion Williamson's game. So if you think Zion Williamson is not worth getting paid, the ex-president was there to watch the dude's game for fun. Stretched his knee out within the first few minutes and everyone thought the guy's career was done. He's never been paid, to the extent where the dude's even taken out $8 million insurance. So if he gets injured, doesn't make it to the NBA, at least he gets a tiny bit of what he would have got if he went there. So it's getting to the extreme level now where people are like forced to do that sort of stuff.
And yeah, I saw his Instagram account. He's got 2.8 million followers. And he's not.
By the way, anyone out there, check out Zion Williamson, man. The guy is 280 something pounds or something close to that. That is well over 115 kgs, and he's flying like Michael Jordan through the air. It's unreal. Like I never thought I'd say this. He looks better than LeBron did at that age. What? That's insane.
But so he can't even get paid anything from, because obviously he's got such a big social media presence, so he can't actually rep like Nike or Adidas on his social media accounts.
Nope,
which is ridiculous.
The college he plays for, Duke, gets a Nike deal, and I guess his shitty little apartment they give him, and his shitty little canteen food that he gets from that Duke University, that's meant to be his payment. Dude, the guy could be served by freaking Heston Blumenthal if he wanted. He's so rich, man. Like, no joke.
It's really ridiculous.
That's why people like Kobe and LeBron, man, they said screw that, straight from high school, straight in, get that cash, secure your future. Michael Jordan didn't, but then look at his fundamentals compared to some of the other guys who went straight. But then Zion's like intelligent, because now they allow, it's called a one and done, which is just 1 year in college, learn some fundamentals, learn the discipline, and then straight into the league from there.
And so is that what he's doing?
Definitely, because he's twisted something and he's twisted something else. You can't play like that, man. At least when you sign that rookie contract, there's a clause for full medical care and full insurance and things like that.
So does that mean next season he'll be?
Oh, absolutely.
Drafted.
And every single team is trying to lose every single match so they get that first pick. The messed up thing about the USA is because they know people do that. Zion is so coveted, and he's so generationally changing for a team that teams are tanking intentionally to get into the bottom three, and then there's a lotto for the bottom three. They swish around 3 balls and pick up 1. So teams are ruining their records just to get into that bowl of balls to be picked for the first pick. Some people say another one of his teammates, RJ Barrett, will get picked first. But in my opinion, if you want to get butts on those seats, you pick Zion, man. Any team Zion goes to, unashamedly, and I can say this without a shame because I'm not American, I'm bandwagoning the hell of the team the guy goes to, man. I'm paying that 24 Rand per game on League Pass just to watch Zion, just for any teams listening out there. He gets you fans, he gets the eyes, which works for sponsorship as well.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, do you think, like, going back to what we said about like a draft thing for like rugby or football kind of in the league here, if you got like some of the players, let's look at like rugby and say
rugby would be sick from high school, because we watch a lot of F&B Classic Clash here, which is full-blown high school rugby. What about a draft from high school to college, from high school to varsity cup? That would be cool.
Or then varsity to provincial sides, to the Sharks and all that.
You're really gonna force like one of the best players from like Paul Roos then to UCT, then he must go to Griquas after that, when Bulls would have taken him any second. That's unfair, Darren.
But the player also has to have a decision on whether or not where they go.
Compare the lifestyles between the players.
Obviously,
it's unfair to make them stay there. In America, you can send someone to what's considered bad, which is Cleveland, which is like a first world place. Many people say it's bad and it's tough, but like a difference between staying in like Seattle or something like that, it's negligible. I think to force people to go places here, force them to stay in a campus, that's fine. They can stay within the confines. Everything gets provided. I think there's too many places in South Africa that you could force players to go that the player unions wouldn't have it, man. But I think high school to university would be a fun one. I think that would be a fun draft, even for cricket.
And then for maybe another alternative, if you got some guys that maybe were reaching their peaks, or not peaks, the latter years of their career. So like a Dan Carter, even though he's still pretty good at the moment, like a Matt Gito, all those guys, and put them into like
I'd honestly take Dan over most, just because of the composure of the guy. I'd take him over most current fly halves.
But like to put them into like a draft where some of like the lower teams in Super Rugby get like to choose some of these experienced players and like give them 1 year contracts, and like, because then it makes things a bit more interesting. Like if you had a lower team, like say like even like if you look at the Sunwolves, and like if you had Dan Carter at 10 and like a Makito at 12, like that would change the team like drastically.
It would, yeah. It would,
Just
yeah.
having two players like
Especially for
that.
the morale of the team. And I think they do make provision for that in the NBA salary cap. It's called a veteran contract. So if you reach a salary cap, if you sign a veteran's contract, but Vince Carter won the 2001 dunk contest, or somewhere around there. I might have gotten the years wrong. He's still playing. He's still playing in the NBA. He was one of the biggest stars of all time, and now he's just stayed in the league. People keep him there. He's not a bad player, but he's well below average. So they do make provision for that. And I promise you, a lot of those fans are fans of the team because Vince Carter from their childhood plays for them. So yeah, what you're saying, they have made provision for that. I think that would be a good thing to have some sort of draft, maybe even have some sort of provision for them to be able to do that. But in America, LeBron James is like, let's put LeBron, if we can like use Dragon Ball Z references, put LeBron at like level 100 power, and we could put like maybe the second best player like Giannis Antetokounmpo or someone, or Kevin Durant at 2 or 3. They'd be sitting at around 80 and 85%. That's a huge gap between the first and the second best player. In terms of the max contracts they give it out in terms of percentage. So if the salary cap's 120 million, they sign you a max contract. They don't give you an amount, they give you a percentage. They're going to give you 30% of that salary cap, between 25 and 30. So if you make it to the All-Star game or you win the league, they'll increase it to 30. In a free market, completely free salary market, LeBron James would be getting Messi and Neymar salary combined. That's how good he is. And Ronaldo's salary combined. He's worth like an infinite amount of money.
Well, thankfully there are some caps then, because giving all that money to one person seems a bit ridiculous.
You want to hear something ridiculous? Nike signed him to a lifetime $1 billion deal. That's a B.
Yeah.
And that's not even for playing sport. That's just for wearing the gear.
That's fantastic. I wish I was that lucky where people come and pay you to wear their clothes. Like, what more could you ask for?
Put the stylish, well-designed, comfortable, well-renowned tick on your body, and here's $1 billion as well. And you can do it for the rest of your life.
Just saying to any people out there, we are open to sponsorships as well.
And Nike as well. We don't have video at the moment, but my new Samsung mic box is in the background if anyone plans on sponsoring from Samsung.
Yeah, we'll just drop a few names.
Betway as
well. Is there anything else you want to go on to regarding the NBA, or should we move on to a bit of cricket that I want to talk about?
Sure.
So the one thing that I've been thinking about, and that's been on my mind over the last 2 weeks of that, is with the Dwayne Olivier Kolpak that he signed to come play cricket in Yorkshire.
And now he's going to play for England. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And like what? Because I think it's up to him. It's his decision. It doesn't. I know Cricket SA was crying about how much money they put into him and all the effort that they did, but at the end of the day, it's business. And if that's what he wants to do, it's up to him. And he's had a great season, or the first few games he's got like over 30 wickets and 4 or 5 test matches or something.
Something interesting I wanted to ask you, having moved from South Africa to the UK. Do you think some South African players having to deal with the problems we deal with in South Africa, do you think when they go to the UK and those problems disappear, do you think they just become relieved a little bit and that increases their sports performance? Could that be a possibility?
Definitely. If you look at some of the players that have come over here,
Jonathan Trott,
if you, not even those guys, Kevin Peterson's obviously a big one.
Amazing. Let's not even get into it because the list is endless. Andrew Strauss, we can just keep going forever, honestly.
Yeah, pretty much half of England's cricket side of the last couple of years has been South African. But if you just look even at the Kolpak players over the last few years that have come over here and their performances, even like Riley Rousseau and Carl Abbott here in Hampshire.
That hurts when you say that, Darren, those two names, because my goodness, man. Jeez, dude.
There's Wayne Parnell. Wayne Parnell has been fantastic, and Darren Goff said it was Wayne Parcel in his column that he wrote, which is fantastic.
Idiot.
But yeah, if you just look at those kind of guys and their performances and the stats over the last county championship, and that they're pretty damn impressive. And yeah, so it definitely could be that removing themselves from South Africa and some of the stresses we have there.
In South Africa, a lot of people earn enough to elevate themselves out of those problems and gate their communities and gate their whole areas and stuff. I don't think cricketers get paid enough in South Africa have to do that. I'll be honest with you. I see some guys with South African apparel, some franchise apparel in the gyms here in Durban. So, like, you'd expect them, they're professional athletes, to have their own gyms, to have their own high performance centers with trainers there 24/7. It's clear they don't. So, just having that extra support, I think, affects them. And then obviously you get players who would obviously have that, still go there and still somehow do better. Maybe it's just the relief of not having to worry about all the stuff we deal with, like you said, and agreed with me, rightfully so. But now, Darren, this Colpack thing, I think you need to split it. One, it's their job, all right? So once they have children, I'm not sure whether Olivier has children or whatnot, but he obviously has himself to support. He obviously has his stuff that he wants to invest in. Who would blame you if you offer him more amount of money, more stability? Let's not understate that. It's the draw of the pound. It's the mighty pound. It would make people move from almost anywhere if you offer them a certain amount of pound. Put a calculation to transfer that amount to theirs. Once they see that how much it goes up by, changes their mindset completely, and everything else will be better for him, from facilities to crowds to safety to everything like that. Can you blame a player? Because for sport, for us, is emotional. Sport for sportsmen, it's emotional to a certain extent, but it's also very business for them. So in a way, I can't blame them. That's why very, very few players would walk off when they hit a nick, because that nick could be the difference between an 80,000 Rand bonus for winning the match. So now you're mixing business between being ethical or not. So in a way, I don't blame him at all, especially because of how difficult things are in South Africa. But in a way, you expect when you reach that super pinnacle level of representing your country, as you would, some people would conflate the two, like being a soldier and representing your country. You know what I'm saying? I think that's why people get emotional and upset, because you don't betray that no matter what. It's business, man. Money talks. And make South Africa better if you feel like that, so that we could pay him more.
Yeah, I agree with that. If South Africa wanted to cry about it, then they should just come with a better offer. And like I've seen some of the county teams here, like the facilities and that they have are pretty much the standard of some international sides around the world. They're treated really well. Each county is pretty, like, has their own very well structured, all you could ever think of, they have it. And ticket prices obviously here are quite a lot higher than, say, in South Africa, which also helps to pay off the big salaries and that. And it's also very well attended here. Most games are sold out whenever I look at the local cricket ground here.
Darren, in South Africa, people don't really go out their houses at night because it's so dangerous, let alone go to a cricket match. You know what I'm saying? Unless it's like an important thing.
Yeah. So I can't see why everyone's having such a hissy fit over it. And the one article that I didn't mention was Darren Goff. He fully opposed Olivier's comment on wanting to play for England one day, which I thought was
England bowler.
Yeah, which I thought was kind of ridiculous. If he wants to play for England and that, then why not let him?
He's not knocking at the ECB door saying, "Give me a contract right now. I'm holding a gun to you." They came to him, and just on that point, why are so many of the South Africans getting picked by England? It's not because South Africans are these demigods that are just better than everyone else. We haven't won a World Cup, by the way, so you cannot say that. You have to think that if these guys if the cream rises to the top in a difficult playing society, especially for white players in this country, if they still manage to rise to the top beside the quota systems, what kind of mental toughness do you have? Cricket's like it's like a 50% mental, 50% physical sport. We've seen guys like I just want to bring up that fat dude from Bahamas who took that catch. Obviously,
Dwayne
like
Leverock.
yeah, Dwayne Lever. It's not like a specifically varied. If you guys have guys like Root and Kohli who are dominating, and they're not the biggest statured guys. Little Master, for example, like that. If you somehow rise to the top with that mental fortitude, and then you get the privilege of being able to have those high performance centers, have that backing and stuff, why wouldn't you rise above everyone else who's sort of been sitting there enjoying it, being sort of given the nutrition and being given the profession, the massages and things like that, the recovery with the ice baths and things like that. Things like that don't exist here, man. Only now the top high schools are starting to implement it. There, it's been done for years and years. So it's no wonder the South African rise to the top. It's just logical thinking that would make it happen. It got nothing to do about South African.
And they're not going to complain. England's not going to complain when Olafier's there and he takes 30 wickets for them in a test in the Ashes or something like that, and wins it for them. So
in a way, England is a nation of people who've come from different places, so they feel proud of that. That's why the ECB gives them a contract.
Yeah, exactly. And if that player is helping that country to win a World Cup or Ashes, whatever, like, does it really matter? You look at
we take Imran Tahir and when he tears people apart, we don't say anything. He's Pakistani.
Exactly. You get
What about Beast, Darren? What about Beast? He's from Zimbabwe, and he's considered more South African than some South Africans. He's so loved.
Jordan for the English team. Look at him. So yeah, there's plenty of examples. So it's quite yeah.
It's silly. It needs to be stopped. Like how they think about it needs to change. You need to think about it realistic. Soccer players, other countries welcome them back with open arms. We they play overseas. I mean, sorry, the other way around. Soccer players are welcomed with open arms to come back, but for somehow it's a different thing for cricket and a different thing for rugby. I would say rugby is coming around though. We are starting to, take the number, a certain number 8. I forget his name now. We're starting to bring him back recently. A lot of the props and things like that. We don't mind. Dwayne Vermeulen, that's the one. We don't mind getting them back for the national selection. It's seen as a good thing now.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that's the business of sport. Basically, it's a good analogy to put the two together, because how Americans do things, you can draw some of those aspects in compared to how the rest of the world, literally the rest, you can't even say the West, because the East, the sort of Oceania side, we all sort of do it the same. Even South America with their football. So it's basically draw the good from them and keep the bad things where there are some bad things in their sports culture, which we won't discuss because it's minor. They really do flourish. Then again, it comes from their niche culture of sport as well.
Anything else you want to close off with?
No, I think that's about it. I think slow introduction of fair play in football would work, like they are doing. Don't instruct harsh things, because you got to respect the millennium, the whole hundreds and hundreds of years of culture that football teams have. You can't just immediately start stripping them. I do think it's needed for PSG though, because certain individuals take a liking to a team and then sort of just buy it out and ruin stuff for everyone.
Thanks for listening, and please remember to subscribe and follow us on our different social media pages. Catch you next time.